Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our council meeting for October 10th. The time is 7:01. As we have quorum, I will call the meeting to order. I'd like to start the meeting off in a good way by acknowledging that the city of Maple Ridge carries out its business on the traditional and unceded territory of the Katzie First Nation and the Kwantlen First Nation. Madam Clerk, can you provide us with an overview of the meeting, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. This evening is being live streamed and recorded and will be available to the public for playback on our website in accordance with Council Policy 3.12. The purpose of a council meeting is to enact powers given to council using bylaws or resolutions and is the venue for debate of issues before voting on a bylaw or resolution. This meeting is being conducted through the city's One Meeting platform. For voting purposes, council has been provided with voting cards, green for in favor, red for opposed, yellow for point of order. For members of the public who would like to speak during public question period, if you are participating electronically, please register as a speaker by clicking on the raise hand icon and turning your mic and camera on. When you're called on, please clearly state your name and city of residence. If you're attending the meeting in person, please come forward to the podium when the mayor invites speakers and clearly state your name and city of residence before beginning your comments. Participants are reminded that there should be no discussion of public hearing bylaws which have not yet reached conclusion. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak to council. A second opportunity may be provided once all speakers in the queue have had an opportunity to speak. The total time allotted for the public question period is 15 minutes. That concludes our opening statement. Your Worship, the first item on tonight's agenda is approval of the agenda.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Doze, seconded by Councillor Schiller. Any comments or questions on the agenda? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And motion is carried unanimously. We're going to go on to the adoption of minutes for September 26, 2023. Can I get a motion to move the minutes, please? Moved by Councillor Doze, seconded by Councillor Carreras. Any questions or comments regarding the minutes? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor of the minutes? Motion has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, where are we next?
Your Worship, the next item on tonight's agenda is a delegation, the Seed Center Society. Christian Cowley, Executive Director, is here to provide a presentation on the Japanese Canadian Legacy Project.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll ask the delegation to come forward and I'll remind you that you have 10 minutes. If you see my hand waving all over the place, you're coming down to the end.
We have done a bit of timing ahead of time, so we're hoping we're going to be able to stick to it.
Excellent.
And I think I'll pass this over to you, and it's your part, Christian. I've got the clicker here. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. My name is Martin Dmitriev, and I am president of the Seed Center. And with me is our executive director, Christian Cowley. And tonight we're presenting on the Japanese Canadian Farming Community Legacy Project. This project, its objectives are to restore a missing narrative of our local culture and heritage of our Japanese Canadians here in Maple Ridge. There are gaps and many different places in our community where we see the remnants of that history, but they're not well told. And we want to capture those before the people and that retain those memories are lost as well. I'll just indicate that if you want to check it out on our Seed Center website, we curate the Seed podcast. And one of my personal friends and colleagues, Trevor Takasbaki, speaks to his experiences growing up and not knowing his connections to Maple Ridge. So episode 11. Thank you, Christian. We want to create a destination where those that have connection to the Japanese Canadian experience in the diaspora can come to our local community and find a place to learn more about their roots. In fact, this has happened at our center in the past. Right now, we're at stage 1 of the planning process. So what we're asking you to do is help cooperate with us and we wish you to issue a letter of intent to the Japanese Canadian Legacy Society to help support this, the early steps of this process of undertaking this. So this would help us secure funding for the project. And what's the importance of this project? So it's important to note that there are aspects of the Japanese Canadian experience and its history that are available in different parts of BC, but the farming narrative is one that doesn't have much of a focal point or a place where people can go in our communities throughout the Fraser Valley or in the province as a whole. And so our intent here is to fill a gap, as it were, to provide a place where this story can be told. I know on my own personal family farm I grew up on. I grew up there with a dilapidated building that I didn't know until much later in life was the former remnants of a Japanese farm that was sold to a World War II a veteran upon his return, of course, after the city had sold off the original Japanese family's land. So there's a lot that needs to be told. So we do have some online presence of information, but again, there are a lot of gaps and places where there's, I guess you could say, the need for greater stories to be told to fill those gaps. And if you visit the Maple Ridge Museum website, you'll see some of this illustrated there. So I'll pass this over to Christian to continue the presentation.
Thank you, Martin. And good evening, Your Worship and Council. Why the Seed Center makes sense to lead this project. Our building is the only Japanese Canadian built building that's used somewhat close to its original purposes. We own the building and the city owns the land on which it sits. So it's a perfect partnership. Our society fully supports this project going forward because it will have a future component as well. And we intend to install the core assets, the interpretive exhibits, partly in the center, around the center, and at other sites in Maple Ridge, Mission, and Pitt Meadows. That makes sense. We've been talking to the Japanese Canadian Legacy Society, which has been formed to take care of the BC redress monies. For over a year about this narrative, this missing narrative of the farms, Japanese Canadian farms that were here. I have a personal connection to it through my children and my wife. Some of their lands were taken away through the process of the internment and the post-war, the period. So I have a personal stake in it as well. As a professional stake in it. We already have many agreements with the city on projects that we jointly do, mostly community gardens at this point. So just getting used to the pointy thing here. Where am I pointing? Not moving for me.
Oh, there we go.
Okay,
Go back.
so here are some of our potential project participants. We'll go one more. There we go. So the city of Maple Ridge, Pitt Meadows, and Mission. The first two, Maple Ridge and Pitt Meadows for sure, and then we're going to explore the possibility for Mission. There was a sizable farming community there as well. We will involve the local First Nations on whose land the settlers came, and we will draw upon the resources of the Japanese Canadian related organizations that are centered in Vancouver and Burnaby. UVic has a repository of all the register of people interned. So we have a lot of that data and information that's being vetted. And then of course the museums have some of the information. Then we will also do live interviews of people from across Canada. So the deliverables on this project are basically to assemble the partners and collaborators to research and document the pre-war and internment era Japanese Canadian farm, family, and community histories, to locate sites in the 3 target cities, and then to create the fixed and mobile interpretive exhibits. Create some of that digitally to make it accessible across Canada and throughout the world. And then to host, arrange and host inaugural ceremonies in each community. Why the city of Maple Ridge? Well, you own the land on which our building sits, and there are amenities to the general public that will be derived out of this project at the municipal level. And of course, cities have a role in historic preservation, public education, and awareness raising. And the city is also partly responsible for the historic injustices that happen to this community and that underlie the need for this project. And we have the opportunity now to right some of those wrongs. So what does it mean in terms of finances? At this point in time, very little to the city of Maple Ridge. The project, we will be jointly applying for a $400,000 grant over 3 years that will cover all the project and event expenses. So our main ask of council is council and staff time in the coordination of the related public events, the interpretive site selection, and promotion after the project of these assets as a tourist destination. So all expectations are consistent with what your residents and citizens would expect of council to do. The benefits. It put Maple Ridge on the map as a destination for the Japanese farm narrative and provide some tourism potential. So former residents can return to a place where the story started and start to experience some intergenerational healing. We had a 94-year-old woman come into our center the other day. She said, I went to school at this building. She came with about 15 of her family members, daughters and nephews and things. And they got a chance to experience the building and talk a little bit about it. And there's clearly some rifts in people's personal stories that this kind of interpretive exhibit will help to begin to heal. So we get local sites that also educate our local residents, because hardly anyone knows that 1/3 of our community was once Japanese Canadian. And of course, we'll bring some money into the community, and future generations will be able to understand this heritage and be better equipped to go into the future, knowing that this event did happen. These were the consequences, and here's how we can avoid similar things in the future. And so this story that's been suppressed by circumstances over time can now be rightfully restored to the benefit of all. Timeline, I'll just draw your attention to the first 2 items on here. Basically, in the month of October, we would love it if you would agree to be a cooperator and collaborator on this project. If you like, you can also be a partner. We're not asking for that much yet. And then from November to January, we would be starting the application process, which is fairly involved. And we anticipate that taking a few months to get all the partners and pieces in place. So up to about January 15th. And then from there, the actual substance of creating what the project's intended to do would take place over the next 1 to 2 years, including the inaugural events. We'll be accountable for this and give financial reporting on periodic basis, as well as major milestones will come to you and give you those results. So that's it for this evening. Thank you very much for receiving us, and we look forward to your cooperation and collaboration on this project and are open for any questions you may have.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your presentation. What I can say is we have received the documentation for the letter of intent. Staff are going through it to make sure that the criteria that is required for the grant is met through yourselves as well as the city. So the next step is once that letter is ready, it'll come back to council for council all to see. And if council chooses, they will then forward it to you. That's the proper way to do it. But I think it's great that you came down here and took the time to let council know what you're doing. I think it's a fabulous idea. Having said that, I will now open up the floor to any questions that anybody might have. Councilor Carreras.
Not really a question, but again, just echoing, thank you very much for coming down and presenting. I had heard bits and pieces the last few months about your work on this, and it was really great to have you present and sort of talk about the timelines and what the project would entail. I think it is a history within our community, a really important history within our community, and I'm grateful for the work that you guys are doing and even finding the grant and bringing it to our attention. So very grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Tan.
Just a quick note and a quick question. Just seconding what Councillor Carrera said, and just a quick question about sort of the continuity of the project. I understand it's a 3-year grant. And so what in your mind do we expect to happen of the interpreter sites after the 3-year project through the mayor?
So after it's established or
That's right.
in
after
the
sort of,
process
I
of
guess,
creating it?
after the duration of this grant period.
Right. Okay. So these interpretive exhibits are intended to be permanent. So we would curate them over as long as they will exist. So we're looking at converting one of the main walls in the Seed Center into an exhibit very similar to the Taiken exhibit in the Nikkei Museum in Burnaby. So pictures and text in several languages, English, French, and Japanese, most likely, detailing the pre-war and internment era. On the exterior of the building, there will be other signage so that people that aren't there during our operating hours can learn a little bit about that history as well. And then at appropriate sites that we identify through the project around Maple Ridge that were either homesteading sites from Japanese settlers, or for example, it would make sense to put something into Nokai Park, which is not the original site, but at least bears the name. So the Heini Nokai was one of the agricultural associations that really were the community centers in the day. And our building was actually part of the Heini Nokai complex, and it was moved to save it. So there's a lot of opportunity to create some permanent, for example, there's about 5 families that are buried in the cemetery in Wanik that very few people know about as well. So there's lots of places that we will probably find through some of the research we do to put some of those markers, whether it's just a plaque or some other form of information that can go forward. And so that history is not lost to the general public.
Thank you for that overview. I'm just again glad and also that you brought this conversation down to City Hall, and as you said, it gives us as this institution a chance to maybe start righting the past wrongs that we have created as an organization in the past. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we thank you for your presentation, and we look forward to hopefully everything coming to fruition and seeing what a fantastic job that this will bring to our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I guess I need a motion to receive the moved by Councillor Carrera, seconded by Councillor Schiller. All those in favor? Unanimous? Sorry? No. We're just we're receiving the report from the delegation. So yes, yeah, okay, unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda are items listed on the consent agenda to be considered for approval in one motion, unless a member of council wishes to discuss an item and requests that it be excluded. Each item removed from the consent agenda will be debated and voted on separately by council.
Thank you very much. There is one item on tonight's consent agenda. Does any member of, council wish to remove any items for discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, can you read the motion, please?
Yes, that the recommendations contained in the following items on the October 10th, 2023 regular consent agenda be approved. Item 7.1, Development Agreements Committee Minutes for September 27th, 2023.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to move this item? Moved by Councillor Youssef, seconded by Councillor Doze. All those in, any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, please.
Your worship, the next item on tonight's agenda are bylaws. The first one is item 9.1, 2024 to 2027 permissive tax exemptions. The purpose of the application is to exempt from property taxation certain properties within the city of Maple Ridge, as noted in the staff report. 2024 to 2027 permissive tax exemptions dated September 12th, 2023. Following advertisement of the bylaw, it was brought to staff's attention that the property located at 23461 132 Avenue is no longer owned by the Fraternal Order of Eagles and no longer qualifies for an exemption. It is therefore recommended council rescind third reading and give third reading as amended to remove the property from Schedule A of the bylaw.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move this item? Moved by Councillor Youssef, seconded by Councillor Schiller. Any comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? A motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item. Madam Clerk.
Yes, your worship. The next item is 9.2, application 2023-188 RZ 21695 River Road to consider adoption of the Associated Heritage Tax Exemption Bylaw number 7949/2023. The purpose of the application is to propose a 10-year tax exemption for the municipal portion of property taxes for the subject property. As a reminder, a 2/3 vote is required to adopt a heritage tax exemption bylaw, resulting in an affirmative vote of at least 5 members.
Thank you very much. Can anyone like to move this motion? Moved by Councillor Youssef, seconded by Councillor Doze. Comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
Your worship, the next item is 9.3, application 2023-189 RZ for 23575 124 Avenue to consider adoption of the Associated Heritage Tax Exemption Bylaw number 7948/2023. The purpose of the application is to consider the subject property for heritage designation and a 10-year tax exemption for the municipal portion of property taxes for the subject property. Again, a 2/3 vote is required.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move this item? Moved by Councillor Youssef, seconded by Councillor Doze. Comments, questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, your worship. The next item is 9.4, application 2023-216 RZ, delegation bylaw for minor variance permits to consider bylaw number 7952/2023. The purpose of the application is to enable the Director of Planning to approve development variance permits for minor variances.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move this? Moved by Councillor Youssef. You're quick on that card today. And seconded by Councillor Doze. Comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Excellent. Moving along, Madam Clerk.
Your worship, the next item is 9.5, Maple Ridge Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Bylaw. This item recommends that the Maple Ridge Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Bylaw number 7959/2023 be given adoption.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move? Councillor Youssef? Well, no. Councillor Doze, followed by Councillor Schiller. Spread the love around. Excellent. Any comments or questions, please? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Now you put your hand up. Excellent. Motion is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
The items in the committee reports and recommendations category are staff reports presented at an earlier committee of the whole meeting, typically 1 week prior, to provide council with an opportunity to ask staff detailed questions. The items are now before the regular council meeting for debate and vote. Your worship, the next item on the agenda is item number 10.1, application 2023-217 RZ, public hearing waiver procedures. This item is recommending that public hearing waiver procedures bylaw number 7954/2023 be given first, second, and third reading.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move this item, please? Moved by Councillor Youssef, seconded by Councillor Doze. I suspect we'll have some comment on this one. Any comments? Councillor Schiller, followed by Councillor Youssef, followed by Councillor Carreras. Your name's right there. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Thank you, Mayor Remy. looking at our public hearing process, I think there is general agreement around this table that our current process could be improved, and that's why this work is moving forward. I think it aligns with things that are happening provincially and regionally as well. So I'm happy to see this happening. I'm thinking about it, and I'm just, wanting to make sure that we are, focused on both ensuring that the public's informed, and that we as a council and a city are able to hear from the public on matters that are of interest to them. So could I ask staff to please just walk me through one more time exactly how the public, when the public will be notified of proposals coming ahead? And I'm just especially interested in sort of the timelines around between when notice is given and when the deadline to provide feedback is received.
Good evening, through the chair. So should this bylaw move forward, the process is once an application is received and deemed complete, a development information sign will be installed on the associated properties as per our current procedures bylaw. Once the application has moved further along, the developer hosts a development information meeting and sends notification out to the surrounding residents of the lots, and those residents are encouraged to come and provide comment on the current proposal, and they can take a look at designs while they're there. Once the application is ready to move forward for council consideration, the application will come forward for first and second reading. Oh, sorry. Before first and second reading, there's a notification process should the application meet the public hearing waivering requirement. And so the notification would go out to residents within 50 meters of the application, which is the same as public hearing right now. And that feedback would be summarized coming to council, just like public hearing today. And it would be at the first and second reading report that council would get that feedback from residents. And after second reading, because we combined first and second reading, comments from the public would be closed because the next process would be third reading.
And so would these proposals come to committee of the whole first, still for first and second reading? And then, so I'm just sort of thinking the most quickly it can move forward, first and second reading goes to COW. And then if that gets moved forward to council, then that would be the following week. So there would be that 1 week there at least for people to give their feedback.
Through the chair, correct. COW would, committee of the whole would continue as is.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so overall, I mean, I do like the proposal that's in front of us. If there are certain portions of this that are concerning, I'd love to see us sort of find a compromise that would allow most of this to go ahead, because I think it's important. And if we need to ask staff to fine tune a few details for specific types of situations, I think it would be good if we could move it forward tonight from my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to start off by commending and applauding staff for the great work that they've done to get us here. The change in approach and culture at City Hall is refreshing and is being felt through the leadership and guidance. Tonight, we're approving both this and minor development variance permits being administered by the planning officer. This is how we move the city, not just through our campaign of Maple Ridge Moves, but actually physically through City Hall to make sure that our processes are streamlined and transparent as well. The 4-week time savings that we were informed of by staff just through this particular item on our agenda tonight, 2 applicants, is going to go a long ways in expediting the housing that we desperately need in our community, as well as, of course, providing the environment for investors to start looking at Maple Ridge as that forward-leaning city that is moving. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I struggled with this when it came to committee of the whole, because we could only ask questions, and I'm still struggling with this a bit. And I'm just struggling to find the balance between supporting movement and getting it through faster, which I think is good. And I have no issue with that, but also supporting it without removing too much of the community's ability to comment on the projects that we're doing. I truly believe that it's important for us to be able to give venue for the public to give input. We can only make better decisions when we have input from the public. So I have a couple of questions. One, Councillor Schiller sort of addressed was around, so right now, currently, if it goes to public hearing, the community has until public hearing and an official public hearing, which has notification within the paper and everything to be able to come and present. With this new timeline, essentially the only people who are getting prior notification are people who live within 50 meters, which, let's be clear, is the length of a pool. And then the first time it really gets tabled, yes, it'll go to committee of the whole, and then a week later go to to council, and then after second reading. So the first time these hit our agendas, we then say there's no public input. Essentially, the question period at the end of the committee, you can't even ask a question at the question period where it's first tabled at council, because at that point we would have already made a decision on it. And so we've really limited the ability for people to comment. Now, are there some projects that we definitely doesn't need to go to public hearing? Absolutely. I think there's a good middle ground here. I think there are a few in here that concern me. So I am concerned that we have significantly limited the public's ability to comment on projects. The question I have is, I'm just curious on this, is in the last year to 2 years, how many projects would not have gone to public hearing if this was in place? Do staff have a ballpark figure?
Yes, council staff looked into that question. If you go back to the beginning of 2022, there's been about 76 applications that would have gone to public hearing in that period of time. 76 have, and using the new criteria in this bylaw, if we were to apply it back to that date, 32 of those 76 would not have gone to public hearing, or about 42%.
So essentially half of our projects would be limited in the ability for public to give input. So that's just the piece that I'm really struggling with. And I'd really love to see this honestly come back to workshop. I don't know where my time is on this. I'm happy to go to a second round. I'm good. Oh, okay. I mean, specifically, I'm concerned about the infill housing, a proposed up to 8 units. I mean, right now we know there's legislation coming from the province around 4, happy with 4, 8, I think is concerning. And when I think about some of even the short period of time that we've been here, some of the projects where we've had people coming and presenting on are those infill projects of over 4. I think those are some of my concerns, and around that real limitation of the public, which concerns me. I want to find a balance, right? I want to be able to have the public to have say, because I truly believe we make better decisions when the public has the ability, but I also understand the need to move things through. So I'm just struggling at this point. Thank you.
Councillor Duick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm of the same opinion as Councillor Carreras. I've got a bad feedback. Sorry. So overall, I think it's great to expedite the projects. I think it's also from the time frame. For me, it's the infill. So I would hate to turn down the whole thing. But it's the courtyard housing because we're waiting for some reports. So I'm not sure how to handle that, because I don't want to turn it down, but at the same time, I am concerned about the infill ones, not obviously the duplexes and the triplexes, because the provincial legislation will override us on that, but the courtyard housing for sure.
Thank you. You're done?
Yeah, that feedback was distracting me. So I guess the question for staff is there a way for us to proceed with, like, the town center, the low heat corridor? All of that makes perfect sense, because it tends to be infill projects where we have the most public feedback. So is there a way to do this without, in particular, the infill?
Through the chair, there's two ways that we could kind of go about it. We can go back and amend the bylaw to take out specifically courtyard infill housing, so those 8 units. The other alternative is for our staff reports, so development staff reports, to flag to council when this is coming forward and provide a recommendation that council or to remind council that it could go for public hearing should council want these particular applications to have a public hearing themselves. So those are kind of the two straightforward options this evening.
And I appreciate that. One of my concerns about picking and choosing whether or not we go to public hearing is then it becomes, well, you don't like this area, or you do like this area, or you like this person, or you don't like this person, versus the merits of the overall bylaw or what it says in our OCP. So that's why I realize we can do that, but it's not the best way. I would much prefer council having the conversation about courtyard housing, and then if council says, you know what, we're okay with courtyard housing, then it becomes part of this bylaw. So that's where I'm leaning towards, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ten.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and thank you to staff for bringing this forward. I think this is a very timely conversation. And as I looked at this one, I am supportive of this, and for two thoughts in terms of good governance, and the second being the sort of facilitating the overall vision of our community, and also to Councillor Youssef's point, the speeding up over the process. And I'm hearing a couple of concerns around the table of let's not expedite at the expense of good governance. But as I look at this, I actually see that this is a very good way for us to move forward in terms of good governance. You know, there is a fair amount of research going on, and with SFU and with the BC Law Institute around the process of public hearings that I think we could have used in the staff report if staff were able to find that information. But I dug a little bit, and SFU is doing a fairly extensive research project now on public hearings. And then they conducted a study paper along with the BC Law Institute. And what they found was that, we are looking at projects that are consistent with the OCP. Just to be clear, and these projects that are considered for the public hearing waiving are consistent with the OCP, which has gone through a massive public engagement project. So it's not that they haven't gone through public engagement, in the OCP overall has. And so what we would be doing is we turn down projects that are consistent with the OCP. What it is going against public engagement in the sense it's because it is the OCP process that has had quite a substantial amount of staff input. And so I looked around and I saw that I understood from the BC Law Institute study paper that there is social science that has found that public hearings, the format of public hearings tend to lead to a more adversarial nature, where you have very loud voices either for or against the development, and it can tend to lead to very difficult situations where you have largely homeowners around the property who tend to be concerned about the development. And then you have, and often pits one type of folks against the other, which I think we are not looking to have in this chamber. We are certainly not looking to pit folks who are looking for housing and to come to public hearings to sort of, in some ways, fight and advocate for their right to housing versus homeowners who are sort of in the area. I don't think we would like to be in that sort of situation. And this is, again, that comes from my research from having looked through the BC Legal Institute paper. And I just want to note again that, and so what did the research paper suggest is that OCP has gone through a very rigorous public engagement process. And so all these are consistent with a very large democratic exercise. And so there's also the question of, is all public engagement always good? And certainly we need to hear, as Councillor Caress said, our decisions are best made with the input of the public. And the specific format of public hearings, notices tend to go out to that specific geographic distance around the project, but not to the wider community. Whereas housing benefits the wider community, folks who don't necessarily yet live in Maple Ridge, folks who are going to be priced out of Maple Ridge, and folks who want to stay in Maple Ridge. And so what we are doing is that I think what we are doing is we need to look at public engagement writ large, not just public engagement during the public hearing, but public engagement in terms of the OCP. And I think so. As I looked around this research paper, there are countries, UK, Germany, France, Denmark, Netherlands, don't have public hearings. There are other countries with different forms of public hearings. So this is not the only way for us to engage in the democratic process as we look at the different Western European countries who share, I think, fairly similar democratic structures. So for me, from what I understand here, there is a fairly strong argument that democracy and public engagement and the housing process is best facilitated by adhering to the OCP. And to wrap off, I want to talk about the overall vision I think we have for our community. I think we understand that we need housing and we need lots of it. We have a huge shortfall, and that's something we all understand. And the reality, I think, is that densifying the low-heat transit corridor and just the arterials that you need in the low-heat is not going to get us there. And there's a significant equity concern if we're asking new folks to move into only apartment buildings along arterials that will have more traffic pollution, will have noise pollution, will have air pollution. The reality is we need infill housing. So if we have a public engagement process that is sound through our OCP process, which I have high trust and confidence in our staff that was carried out, I am incredibly happy. And I think that there's a strong social science research that supports that sort of argument. So I'm very happy to support this motion. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much. The end of round one, I'll share my 2 cents on this. Clearly, I see both sides of what folks around the table are talking about. I'm not sure we're quite there just yet. There are some questions. I don't think there's any doubt that there's a general consensus to want to move forward with this. I'm just hearing some concerns, and my concern is that we might be going a little too fast on pulling the trigger on this one. But I'm willing to keep hearing around the table again. Just so you know, so basically we do have a recommendation. There is always a possibility that if the recommendation passes, then it passes. If it doesn't pass, then we can put a motion forward to send it back to staff as well. Just wanted to put that out there. So moving on to round two, Councillor Carreras.
Thank you. I also, you've heard me talk about strategic planning quite a bit, and strategic alignment throughout the organization. And the other one that gives me pause on this one is, especially because we just spent the morning looking at goals and objectives and key results. Thank you. Forget the result thing. And I look to this, and when I think about the key things around housing are around rentals, they're around below market rentals. Those are the key objectives that we're really trying to struggle with. This actually doesn't help us get there. That's the big piece that's missing from this, is it's not saying, hey, if you want to build rentals or you want to have something that has below market rentals, let's help you get there by removing the public hearing process. I'm just not sure how this particular piece is actually going to help us hit some of those targets. And that's why I really think it needs to go back to a workshop. Yes, it did go to workshop in February, but I don't know about the rest of you, but I was a baby back in February. And the world that I know it now in October is a different world that I knew in February. And I know a lot more from the time that I've spent and hearing from the community. And so I would really like to see this go back to a workshop where we have the ability to kind of take in all these different pieces, even around the engagement piece, to make it a stronger policy that is a good way for us to move forward. I wonder, like, does legal have to be involved in some of those discussions too? Because the public hearing piece was a legal piece that we couldn't hear anything after public hearing. But does second reading still hold that same legal piece that public hearing held? Are we honest? Do we legally have to cut off public input at second reading, which is the first time it gets tabled? Or because there's no public hearing, we can take comments up because that legal piece isn't there? Like, I'd like to hear that as well before I make a decision on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duick, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, that was what Councillor Carreras just asked. I would like to know the answer to that because she's correct. After public hearing, we legally could not receive any new information. So does the same principles apply if we go to this process after we've given it second reading?
Through the chair, so staff did get a legal solicitor opinion for council on this, and with the intent based off of the legislation, the recommendation was that yes, that after second hearing or second reading, public feedback would be closed, just because the process would be moved. It's essentially taking the process of public hearing and moving it forward in the process.
Okay, thank you for that. And the DIM meetings, so would we ensure that the applicants provide all the information from the development information meetings to us prior to first and second?
Yes, a DIM meeting information be provided as per the DIM policy, which applies to any project over 5 units. It's being rezoned. And that be
Okay.
the first and second reading report as it is now providing the second reading for.
Okay, so when I'm listening to everyone's comments, I mean, nobody I think is disagreeing. I mean, the OCP is our guiding document. There's no doubt about it. The reason I mention the courtyard is because I believe that discussion is supposed to come back to council. So if we pass this and then we have that discussion and then we have to revise it. So that's why I'm kind of looking at the timing of all of this. Do we have an idea when council will be having that overall discussion on courtyard housing?
Through the chair, the review of the RT2 or the courtyard housing is underway. Recognizing where we are in the year, it is likely to come before council in early 2024. If it is the sole concern with the bylaw before you, we are certainly able to strike those clauses from the bylaw. However, if there's a more holistic conversation or discussion that you'd like to see on the bylaw, then yes, we can certainly bring this back to workshop as well.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm torn because for me, I do see the having the report on the courtyard housing. It is the one that I have always found to have the most challenges with. Overall, I agree. It speeds up the process. The DIM meeting serves a purpose. To Councillor Tan's point, I mean, we have to look at the community as a whole, 100% OCP. That's what the OCP is about. It's for me about notification because a lot of times people find out information after council has given its first reading, second reading, gone to public hearing. But I'll wait to hear what others have to say on second round and then I'll make my decision. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Doze.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think looking at this, I guess we have to look at this from the perspective of what we went through this morning, the OKR. You have to understand that everything we do here is aimed at solving the problem that we have in our community. And housing has become a very, very serious problem. And I believe, if I'm wrong, anyways, let somebody prove me wrong, that this particular legislation or bylaw is being proposed to expedite the process of improving the lots of our people. So for me, what matters is the objective and the key target we are trying to hit. I've heard my colleagues here talk about rental and below market housing and all the rest of it. These are actually the area we are looking at. If we look at the bylaw or the proposal here that it didn't meet exactly what we are targeting, my recommendation is that we will revisit it, recommend that you add this to this, make it up with this and that, then get it down. Overall, the way this particular bylaw is being fashioned, I think, is geared towards our objective. And I don't want us to just say, oh, it didn't meet this or it didn't meet that, because it's not going to be perfect after all. If we try it and it's not working, we have the right to vote it down again and pass another one. But my recommendation at this stage is that we should try as much as possible to make it all encompassing as much as we can envisage at this point by saying, hey, there's this rental housing that we're having problem with. There is this courtyard or something that we're having problem with. Is there any way staff could incorporate this into this to make it a little bit more comprehensive or more rounded than it is now? Because for me, I still think that it is a very good law for us to pass. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you. And just to speak to that question, is there any way? Well, that way is to send it back to staff with the comments that they're hearing today so that they can go back and rework it. That's the way to do it. I don't think anybody here is wanting to flat out say no. That's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing a consensus that this is a good thing, but I'm hearing some questions. And I want to make sure that council is confident in the direction that they want to go in. And so that's where we're at right now. I think there are questions. I'll finish my comments. I just wanted to speak to that. Let everybody else go again. Anybody else want to have a second crack? No? Okay, then I will finish my comments then. I mean, when we look at things, and was mentioned before, we know that rentals are our biggest challenge, right? We know that. I see this as an opportunity to perhaps incentivize folks to want to build rentals. I think that we can use this as an incentivization to do that. I'm not 100% convinced, and what really is skewing me right now is we've just passed a bylaw that has combined first and second reading. We haven't even tested that yet. We know it'll probably work because other communities are doing that, but we haven't done anything with that yet. So here we go, we get our first development, first and second reading, and then you can't have public input after that. That's concerning to me. And that's why for me, I'm struggling with this as well, because I would rather send it back and take a second look and try to answer some of the questions that have been around this table, and then allow us to make a decision based on available information for us, for our city. I know other cities are not that have done it, but you have to look at what the cities are. If you take a city that's already built out, there's not a lot of those that are out there. We do have a lot of applications that are coming to us, and we have to ask ourselves over the next 3-4 years, are we comfortable with this decision? Yes, we could go back and cancel it. Of course we can. But that's more work to do there. So is this the right thing to do? I don't know, because I don't have all the information, and that's what I'm hearing from some other counselors here. So I will end my comments on that. Oh, did you want to jump in? Councilor Perez?
I'm just looking at the corporate officer to make sure, can I make a motion to refer this back to staff, to bring it back to the expeditiously to the earliest possible workshop that they can bring it to?
Yes, you can.
Okay,
Do we
so
have to deal with this motion first?
I think motion of referral is above it, isn't it?
I think an appropriate motion would be to table this motion and then refer it to the next workshop.
So we have a motion in front of us,
Mhm.
which I think we have to deal with.
I think referral is over that, though. I think it
I'm not
pauses it.
sure.
When I make a motion to refer, it pauses it. I'm looking at Councillor Dueck, who's my my Robert's Rules of Order friend. And so when I refer it, I pause the debate on this and refer it back to staff.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's right. Okay, so then the motion is to
Refer back to staff to a workshop to come back with the input that they heard around the table. But I also want it to come back as expeditiously as possible. I don't want it to sit because I do think this is something we need to get on with. We just need to get it right.
Okay, do I need a motion for that?
I've moved it. I've moved referral.
I need a seconder for that motion. Seconded by Councillor Doze. Any comments or debate on that motion to refer to staff? Councillor Tan, followed by Councillor Doze.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Carreras, for the motion. As I sit on that, I sort of reflect on sort of what's been going around the table, and I can certainly appreciate the thought of wanting to get this right and also wanting to get this right soon. And I just wanted to, so I've gone to a few public hearings in municipalities across Metro Vancouver. I mean, we've sat through a few of these ones here, and I've sat through a few in different municipalities. And I'll say that my experience of public hearings tends to be adversarial, incredibly challenging, lots of drama involved for ones that tend to be within single family neighborhoods. And as I look at the social science research, the study paper published by the BC Law Institute, the research by currently being conducted by SFU, I find that to be a common narrative. As in, it's not just my opinion, it seems to be a fairly common occurrence. And so I think the question I have is not so much, I think we all agree that public engagement is good, but the question is this the kind of form of public hearing we want? And from my understanding, there's a lot of questions about that in the community, in the wider community, not just in Maple Ridge, but in sort of across Metro Vancouver, and I think across BC now as well. So for me, when what I don't want to necessarily have is conversations where, folks get up on the podium and talk about where it can get a little bit challenging. The conversations can get a little bit challenging. And I think, again, I think a lot of these public hearing conversations devolve into, I don't want.
Who has a point of order? Oh, point of order, Councillor Duick.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I really don't like to cut anybody off, but this is a referral. So we've had this challenge before. Once referral's on the table, we can only speak to the referral. So we're either for or against the referral.
Thank you, Councillor Duick, for that.
I'm sorry.
No, thank you for that. I'm very new to this. I don't know how to speak. I'm sort of looking to give my rationale for I will not be supportive of the referral. So I appreciate the intent behind it. And so what I'm trying to do is explain in my usual long-winded way of why I'm against the referral. And please, thank you for that. And I welcome folks stopping me if I don't need that. And so to cut to the chase, what I don't necessarily want to have is public engagement where a group of folks get up and say, we don't want change in our community. And another group of folks get up and say, we want homes. And actually, often the second group doesn't show up because the second group are folks who cannot afford to be coming to a public hearing. They haven't actually received notice of the public hearing because they weren't living close to the area. They tend to be renters. They tend to be disadvantaged in some way in terms they have less time. They are less informed of the process. And this is all fairly well documented in social science. And so in terms of, and just to speak to you, I'm not supportive of the referral because I don't think I want to, I'm not here to, I don't really see how, I'm not seeing how that sort of having a continued conversation about this is going to be useful. It's really, we do it or don't. So I would like to see this as it is move forward in this process. Thanks, Mayor. And thank you to Councillor Duick as well. I do appreciate that.
Councillor Doze.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I think I was very quick in seconding this motion because I see a lot of sense in making or passing a very comprehensive bylaw, as comprehensive as we could get it. The essence of my supporting this is because we have recommended here in these chambers that the new and improved bylaw will have a kind of lesser focus on the issues that are biting us very hard, which is rental housing. And of course, my colleague, Councillor Duick, has mentioned also the courtyard and the rest of them. I think if this particular legislation is modified to include all this, it will help us in achieving our objective. And let me also say here that more often than not, I hear my colleague here talk about it has not been done in other places, or this is the first time it's being done. I think for too long, Maple Ridge had always followed and followed and followed. For once, let us be courageous enough to lead. Let us be courageous enough to do something that is very pragmatic, that will bring the change that we need in this community. I think I'm sick and tired of playing a follower. Let us lead. And I urge my colleague to think about it. Let us think about the way we can come up with a more comprehensive and all-encompassing law that others will emulate and copy. I think I will consider all of us a failure here if we cannot give the whole British Columbia something to copy. I know we're already moving in that trajectory. I saw what have been done, what people are saying about us. This bylaw is what is going to help us to achieve that objective and put us at the number one that we are targeting to be. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
I just want to be clear. We're speaking to the referral.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. That particular referral that we're making is meant to modify, tweak that law so that it will put us up as number one, because we are not going to wait because we want to wait and see what other people are going to do.
Okay.
We are doing it now to be the leader that we're supposed to be and achieve the primary objective that we have in focus. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will not be supporting referral as, again, staff have put together a proposal that fits within our strategic plan that does answer some of the questions we have. I don't expect that it'll be perfect right out of the gate. Nothing is. From my previous experience, I learned that no good plan survives first contact. So let's get it out there and let's try it. Let's work through the kinks that will undoubtedly arise from it. But I would not expect or hold the perfect standard up to staff that on the first go, they're going to deliver exactly what we wanted. That would be all encompassing for all of our individual perspectives and points of view. So therefore, I will not be supporting referral and would much rather support moving the original motion forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Schiller.
Around we go. Okay, so good points made on both sides, and I do, Mayor Remy, you mentioned that we do have a lot of changes underway, and I think that is a fair point that we need to consider. But I will not be supporting this referral because, from my point of view as well, there is so much that is good in here, and while it may not be perfect, or when we may have questions, I don't see that as being a reason to not move forward with this. So I'm not going to support this referral. I do support the way that it's put forward. And I'm not even sure if this is possible, but in the spirit of compromise, if it's the courtyards that are, projects that are a real issue and we want to remove those specific sections, I am happy to support that if we can sort of find a solution that everyone is more comfortable with. I hope that's clear.
Yeah.
No.
Can't do that. That's why you would refer it back to staff.
Okay.
So staff would take the consideration for what everybody's been talking about. Then they would come back to us with a new proposal based on the recommendations that we've been talking about and what they've heard. So
thank you for that. I won't be supporting the referral. I think we should move forward with it. I think there are notifications and even enhanced notifications that are, and we do as council have the ability to request a public hearing for any item. And there's a lot of specific requirements here that need to be met. So I'm happy to support it as is. Thank you.
okay. And Councillor Carreras.
I promise, last comment on the referral. I put the table forward, so I'm clearly supporting the referral, but I do hear what some of my colleagues are saying around the table, in particular around engagement. And I honestly feel that sending it back to workshop allows us to actually create a better engagement process and to take into account. So we're not just eliminating public input, we're creating a better process for public input before it gets to us. And 50 meters for me is one of the pieces, but I'm not speaking to the motion. Just, I think that the referral actually allows us to do some of the things that I'm hearing around the table. So thank you.
Thank you. Point of order? Oh, question?
Procedural question, just to make sure I understand because I'm very new to this. So if we vote in favor of the current motion, which is the referral motion, it goes back to staff for future consideration, if to go back to workshop. And so we vote down the referral motion, it goes back to the main motion.
That's correct.
And if we pass the main motion, that's the one that gets it going and we're off to gets it off the gate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The main motion is first, second, and third reading.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, this is democracy, folks. This is what it's all about. Get it out there and you know, it's all about speaking your mind and getting it where you want to go. So seeing no further comments or questions, I will call the vote on the referral. All those in favor of the referral? What do we see here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4-3. So the referral is passed. There you go. Thank you very much, everybody. Again, this is what debate's all about, right? Being respectful with each other. And I so appreciate your patience and your tones. And, you know, it's great to see. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move to the next item, Madam Clerk, because I forgot where we are.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item on the agenda is item 10.2, application 2022-292 RZ 12040 248th Street from zone CS1 to C2. This item is recommending that bylaw number 7882 2022 be given second reading and forwarded to a public hearing.
Thank you very much. Can I get somebody to move the motion? Moved by Councillor Youssef, seconded by Councillor Doze. Comments, questions on this item, please? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Oh, okay.
I have a question that came from Committee of the Whole, actually. There was discussion at Committee of the Whole around, this is the housing one, right? This is the commercial on the bottom and the housing on the top. And there were lots of questions around putting housing on the entire top and not just the one unit. And I wanted to see if staff were able to go back to the developer to see if there was a possibility of putting more housing on the top.
Yes, Council Carreras, we did go back as per there were a number of questions from council and talk to the applicant. And they initially actually didn't have one unit, but were persuaded by the former director of planning to put one unit on, and they don't see putting more than like 2 or 3 more extra units is financially feasible and suitable for the market. So we did talk to the applicant who's actually here tonight.
Okay. So I mean, you could only put probably 3 units on top anyhow. So if there were 3 units, that is a possibility.
No. The applicant just put one on as requested by the previous director of planning. And really, it's just not feasible to do more units. That's what they found.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And can you put your cards up? Okay, thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item is item 10.3, Ridge Brewing Company Limited for a change of hours of liquor store. This item is recommending a change to hours of liquor service as an amendment to their manufacturing license by Ridge Brewing Company Limited, located at number 2, 22826 Dudney Trunk Road, Maple Ridge. And the request is to be supported based on the information contained in the council report dated October 3rd, 2023, and that a copy of the resolution be forwarded to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch in accordance with legislative requirements.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move this item, please? Moved by Councillor Schiller, seconded by Councillor Carreras. Comments, questions? Councillor Schiller.
Thank you, Mayor Rumi. Just take this opportunity to say that I'm happy to support this. This is a great local business and they provide a great product and service to their customers. So it's a reasonable request, falls into, line with what other businesses in the areas are doing. And I'm happy to see businesses looking to expand their hours. I think that adds to the vibrancy of our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other further comments or questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item is item 10.4, application Maple Ridge bylaw number 7972-2023 for 9878 285 Street, driveway access license. This application is recommending that bylaw 7972-2023, a bylaw to enter into an access driveway license agreement over unopened road allowance beyond the western end cul-de-sac of 98th Avenue, the eastern end of Bell Avenue to property located at 9878 285 Street, be given first, second, and third reading.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move this item? Moved by Councillor Doze, seconded by Councillor Youssef. Comments, questions? Was that a question? Okay. Comments, questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item on the agenda is item 13, public question period. Participants in public question period are reminded that there should be no discussion of public hearing bylaws which have not yet reached conclusion. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak to council. A second opportunity may be provided once all speakers in the queue have had an opportunity to speak. The total time allotted for public question period is 15 minutes. If you wish to inquire about additional opportunities to address council, please contact the corporate officer. For members of the public in attendance in council chambers wanting to participate in public question period, please come forward to the microphone. Please state your name and city of residence for the record, beginning with your address, before beginning and address your comments to the mayor. For members of the public participating electronically, please register as a speaker by raising your hand, turn on your camera, and clearly state your name and city of residence for the record before you begin to address your comments or questions to the mayor.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody in chambers who would like to speak? Oh, look.
Oh, look. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you.
Good evening, Mayor Rumi and esteemed councillors. My question relates to
Sorry, can you just state your
I'm
name?
sorry. Yes, of course. Sorry. I
and
forgot that part.
Where you live?
I'm trying to get through the 2 minutes. My name is Chris Bosley. Do you need my address or just my residence?
City of residence.
Maple Ridge. I reside in the city of Maple Ridge. My question relates to the province's proposed Restricting Public Consumption of Illegal Substances Act. In its, excuse me, in its news release of October 5th, 2023, the province states that if passed, the legislation will allow police officers to ask a person using drugs in any of the public and recreation focused spaces referenced therein to cease the activity and leave the area for another appropriate area, such as an overdose prevention or supervised consumption site. The news release further states that the act will encourage people who use drugs to use safely at local overdose prevention sites to keep community spaces free of illegal drug use. My question has 2 parts. In the event this proposed legislation passes, does the city of Maple Ridge have a plan in place to establish one or more overdose prevention or supervised consumption sites to which a person using drugs in any of the banned spaces in our community may be directed by police officers? Would you like me to ask part 2 and then?
Go ahead.
Okay. If not, does the city of Maple Ridge have a plan in place to establish appropriate areas in our community for drug use? Those are my questions.
Thank you.
I do have one more kind of unrelated question, but if you have time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think for now, when we look at the history of what's gone on, decriminalization at the end of January, the challenges that municipalities have faced with that piece of legislation by not excluding public spaces like parks, as most municipalities have had challenges with that. There haven't been a ton of information that has been gathered yet through the decriminalization part of it. So now that the province is suggesting this course of action, these are all good questions. We are waiting for a report back from staff on what kind of evidence do they have that they can present to us. So that's something we're waiting for staff to come back and present to us. So we haven't had that conversation just yet. And this law is I don't think it's actually passed yet, right?
It's
Yeah, it just got
proposed.
tabled. So it's kind of hard to have that conversation until we actually see what the final legislation is, because as they debate this in the legislature, there may come out to amendments to what they're proposing. Don't know yet. So it's a little premature to suppose what is going to happen with that amendment to the law. It's something that we as a community have said that we would look at when we get back the report from staff and from our CMP, and a lot of the initiatives that we've already been working on, such as Project Dovetail, with having the police do walking the beat again, which has seen some success. But that's a broad question that I can't really give you an answer yet today. But it's something that is going to have to come to council at some point, and we're going to have this conversation.
Thank you, Mayor Rumi. It is a question I will continue to ask.
You're more than welcome to keep asking the question.
May I ask one additional question?
Well, your time is up.
Oh, yes,
So
I'm
we're going to see, does anybody else wish to speak? And look, there is somebody else. Oh, careful.
Hi,
State your name and your.
my name's Debbie Pico. I live in Pitt Meadows, but I volunteer here in Maple Ridge. So my question is basically a follow-up from Chris's. When you're talking about getting more information, and you've given us examples of organizations that information has come from, could you tell me when you involved the people who are involved, are street people, are people who are addicted? When did they have a chance to give their input into these changes or the bylaws?
Thank you very much. We haven't made any changes to the bylaw.
Okay.
It's a provincial matter at this point. So we're all waiting to see what the end result of that change is going to be.
Okay.
As far as the city is concerned, we've added more bylaw officers to, even with our CSOs who try to help those that are struggling find better resources. So as a city, we're doing our share in that part. By no means is it complete.
Okay.
It's still, it's a complex, it's a complex challenge that many cities are facing. And it's something that we have to have a more in-depth conversation as we figure out what the new law is going to be.
Okay. And can I just add something? That part of the Maple Ridge Street Outreach Society is the business engagement program. So what our people who are involved and use drugs meet with businesses and try to help their own people, getting them off the streets in the morning, taking them for coffee. And if there's any way that we could get support from the city, that would be awesome. Thank you.
And all I'll say to that is there are plenty of organizations right now that are doing peer-to-peer support. It's something that is accepted. It's something that I would imagine is a very good thing to help de-escalate some of the situations that people may run into out there. And we're going to keep continuing looking at this as it evolves.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we still have time? Yes, we do. Is there anybody else who would like to come and speak to us? Seeing nobody else, we can go to round two.
Good evening, Mayor Rumi and esteemed councillors. Christine Bosley, resident of Maple Ridge. Okay. There is anecdotal evidence that private citizens are impersonating RCMP and CSOs on our streets and confiscating people's belongings, including illegal drugs they are permitted to possess pursuant to BC's decriminalization pilot program. This often results in the drug user engaging in criminal activity to obtain more drugs, which completely defeats the purpose of the program. In the event it has the power to do so, I am asking the City of Maple Ridge to make it mandatory for all RCMP and CSOs and bylaw officers to carry business cards and require them to provide one to any person with whom they engage in order to curb this disgraceful activity. That is my question.
Thank you. Actually, to be honest, it's the first I'm hearing of that. So thanks for bringing it to our attention. It's something that we will reach out to our bylaw officers and RCMP and see what they're hearing. And if so, well, I guess we have to work towards finding a solution to that as well. Okay, thank you. All right. Seeing as how there's no one else, I will officially close question period. No, we're not adjourning the meeting yet. Madam Clerk,
Your
take us to the
worship,
next item, please.
the next item on the agenda is item 14, Mayor and Council reports.
Thank you. Okay, I will open up the floor. We're going to change your name to Speedy Gonzalez.
Actually,
Go ahead,
Mr.
Councilor
Chair,
Youssef.
that was a name from a previous chapter in my life, so it makes a comeback apparently. Old habits die hard. Thank you very much for recognizing me, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. It's unfortunate and tragic what we're experiencing, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to offer my condolences and support for our friends, family, neighbors, and staff that are experiencing this tragedy and quite frankly, shock that we're all learning the details of. Speaking about the situation in the Middle East, and it's a sad day when innocent civilians get attacked in their day-to-day lives. Absolutely senseless and has no place in this world. So I just wanted to offer my support and condolences to our community that's grieving, that's reeling from all of this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Any others? Councilor Carreras?
Thank you. Just quickly on a couple of things. So we had a Parks, Recreation and Culture meeting last 2 weeks ago, and then we had one last week, which I unfortunately was unable to attend. But 2 weeks ago, we had a great presentation from Krista Gowan on the Heritage Plan. And what I loved most of what she said is the Heritage Plan is not just about old buildings, but unique things that we want to freeze in time, which was a different way of looking at it. And I really appreciated that view. We also had an overview of the urban forest management strategy, which is out having public meetings, which I think they're done now. Still some opportunity for public engagement. Look forward to the next stage of that coming back. I want to just highlight an event that some of us were able to attend. I'm not sure if Councillor Doze was going to talk about it. No? Okay. We attended this wonderful event, many of us really around youth supporting youth, which I absolutely loved. And Camso Doze, of course, the last name is the same as Councillor Doze, who is a young gentleman at Westview High School who put together events sort of celebrating diversity and culture within our community, and all the funds raised went to the Foundry. And I wasn't able to stay to the very, very end, but what a great event. It was, I loved just all the youth there. And as I said, youth supporting youth and just celebrating the cultures in our community. I just want to, I look forward to the Economic Summit tomorrow, the last of our 3 summits that we're hosting, and the community coming together. And economic development is a really important piece of our strategic plan. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments, questions, reports? Seeing none, I'll throw my 2 cents in there. Yes, tomorrow is the third of our summits, is the Economic Development Summit. It's going to prove to be very interesting. We have the provincial minister of business who will be there as a panelist and a keynote speaker. We have a welcoming greeting from the federal minister of small business. And we have two panels that are just loaded with economic development people. So that's going to be exciting. There's also a special event on tomorrow, which I can't say, I'm not allowed to say, but you have to come to the development summit in order to see what's happening. Also tomorrow night, it's a busy night. We have Hometown Heroes event. That's going to be very exciting to attend every year, just to see the wall of students that have graduated that have excelled in sports and put their name on the wall. That's quite interesting. I think I will stop there. Sorry, I'm gonna just piggyback on that one. Do we know how much Kemzo raised?
Yes, Your Worship, I was told 8,600.
How much?
8,600 and
Wow.
You raised $8,000?
1,600.
$1,600.
Yes, sir.
Whew. I prefer the other number. I thought 8,000 was great, but even $1,600 is amazing. That is, I attended the event too, and I loved all the music and the cultural differences and the fashion shows, and it was very fun to see, and especially having somebody, even though he's your son, who wanted to do something so special for the community. And so please thank him on behalf of council for doing an amazing job.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Actually, I would say that the aspect of it that was quite interesting to me is the fact that the young men and women we have in that school decided to come together. Yes, I know that my son will have been the leader, if you want to say, but the fact is that he didn't do that all by himself. There was participation from all his friends and classmates and all what have you. And the one that I will never forget was the young men that were dancing with the masquerade. The first time they were saying that, the first time they were possibly doing that kind of dance, they did so well. In short, I promised myself that I'm going to leave that particular video for maybe sometime when they are all grown-ups, and then I'm going to come to the open and embarrass them with it. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Seeing as how there are no other reports to be had and that we have no further business, I will adjourn the meeting. The time is 8:27. Thank you all very much. And again, thank you for your ability to debate and have good conversation and come to, whatever the end result is, that we walk away knowing that we spoke our minds and we did what we needed to do.